Hi, everyone, and welcome. Let's see here. So for this week, we're going to be talking a little bit about settler colonialism. So what I wanted to do was just share my screen real quick and discuss this concept of settler colonialism. So I wanted us to look at the share screen, and I'm going to be looking at my second screen. So just keep in mind that I'll be looking back and forth. And this will be a really good article for you all to touch upon in terms of like understanding this concept of settler colonialism. And there's three major concepts that I want us to grasp. I guess four if you kind of incorporate terra nullius. But settler colonialism is a distinct type of colonialism that replaces indigenous populations with an invasive settler society that over time develops a distinct identity and sovereignty. Okay, so that means that we're talking about sovereignty in terms of like ownership of land, right? And understanding what it means to really be sovereign, right? A state, right? The state entity that comes in and sort of defines itself as sort of proprietors or owners of that of that particular plot of land. And in particular, we're talking about like the United States. So settler colonial invasion, right, is a structure, not an event, right? So it's not something that just happened and went away, but rather it's this continuation. Settler colonialism persists in eliminating indigenous populations and asserting state sovereignty and juridical control over their land. So again, controlling the land, right? And that's where we look at sovereignty, right? And third, we have settler colonialism that seeks its end. Um, and what it means is, unlike other types of colonialism, the goal is to sort of keep that structure in place, and that's what we see here in the United States, right? We see echoes of this, right? Land ownership, and whatnot. That still continues on today, and that's part of the project, right? That's part of settler colonialism. And imbalances in power between colonizer and colonized. So the colonizer, the people that are in power that can enforce these, right? Especially Western and European folks. And there's the colonized, the folks that were either here indigenously, right? And also the African American folks that were brought over as slaves are also part of the colonized group, as well as even some can argue even the immigrant folks that come in as well, right? And so the colonization trends towards the end of colonial difference in the form of a supreme and unchallenged settler state and people. So there's a settler state. So we're talking about this sort of, the colonizers sort of divorcing themselves from, say, European, their European counterparts, right? And so for them to, remove themselves from that, right? From that rule and to sort of create their own settler state, which is what we still here in the United States, right? Sort of divorcing themselves from the British in particular, right? When we look at American independence. So this is not to decolonize, right? And so this is different from like decolonizing, right? It's this sort of its own unique sort of colonial state that's still that still is pervasive today. The colonizers want to eliminate challenges, right? That kind of that they would face, like in terms of being ruled, right, by not only the British, for example, but also by, say, other forces like the indigenous groups, right, as being a threat. Right. And so this is this concept that we sort of discuss within, ethnic studies as part of this sort of continuing process and really critiquing what it means to sort of be part of this, society and the social structures that are embedded in our society. So within this, we have this term called terra nullius. Okay, it's a Latin term, and the perception that land in long-term use by indigenous people are empty or unused, right? So there's this term of like settler colonialism that gets put into place, but also this sort of thought that goes, where we think of the folks that are colonized, like the indigenous folks, really didn't exist, or the land that they lived on was not being used in a proper manner, a proper way, and was also empty, right? It was basically free for people to take over, right? And this is a notion that's very problematized, and so we kind of look at this term as that's sort of justifying the settler colonial state, right? So the settler colonizer carves indigenous held lands into discrete packets of private property. So it becomes this sort of open land anyone can take, and therefore staking a claim on it, even though that's fundamentally different from how indigenous folks really viewed their land, right? And we'll see that throughout this unit when we're looking at indigenous and indigeneity and what their perceptions are in terms of what and sort of how it is in stark contrast to what we're looking at with terra nullius and settler colonialism, like these sort of perspectives or terms that are used to sort of describe what it really meant for Europeans to sort of come over and take over the land. So hopefully that helps explain things a little bit better. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. But that's in a nutshell what settler colonialism is. Obviously, there's a huge breadth of literature on this, and I'm trying to condense it for a class. But yeah, so that's kind of how it is. So please give me a buzz if you need any more clarification. Hope you have enjoy some of the readings that we have, to sort of apply this notion of settler colonialism and terra nullius too as well, to our own projects coming up. So talk soon.